Hi there, my name is Nadja Nabbie and I'm a writer from Trinidad and Tobago. In a world full of accidents, violence, sickness and disaster, trauma can feel inevitable. Trauma involves any threat to life and is an emotional response to an event that is overwhelming and stressful. For the many who have endured trauma, healing may seem far-fetched, if not impossible. And yet, I am here today to encourage you to believe that it is possible, it can happen, it is real. Today, I invite you to come along on a journey with me. On it, we will listen to women who will give us insight into the process of healing trauma through the creative arts. The experts will provide us with insight. They will give us the knowledge on how this works. The artists will soothe our souls and lift our spirits. Together, they will all help us step gently into light. I would like to sincerely thank Kingston Creative, Fresh Milk Barbados, and the American Friends of Jamaica for making this moment possible through the Catapult Caribbean Creative Online Program. Finally, I would like to dedicate this to all women. May we always have the strength to endure our trauma and come out strong on the other side. May we always have the grace to walk that bridge to healing.
What is trauma? Now, there's a very commonsensical notion of trauma. People talk about all the time, I've been traumatized. Something difficult happened to me and it traumatized me. But apart from the commonsensical notion of trauma, which is something that has caused pain or wounding, trauma has a more technical definition. And that is, trauma is a wound that has been so profound, it has so disturbed a person on the inside that they have not been able to deal with the enormity of what happened. So some element of the wounding has gone beneath the surface of consciousness, and trauma happens when that wound that has gone deep down into the subconscious is trying to emerge, trying to come into articulation, trying to come into conscious knowledge.
Trauma is an emotional response to any sort of terrible, horrific, or extreme event, such as a natural disaster or an accident. According to the research, women are actually twice as likely to develop PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Women can potentially face a wide range of traumatic events, ranging from sexual assault, domestic abuse and violence, the loss of a child, and postpartum trauma. And postpartum trauma can be any trauma that has been experienced while having a baby.
What are some of the traumatic experiences, traumas experienced by women in the Caribbean? Sexual abuse, very, very common, very often childhood sexual abuse. I am aware of that there are certain communities in which children are abused regularly and from generation to generation. Grandmothers, mothers, daughters, siblings, cousins, all of them may have been abused by the men of the community. Increasingly now, we are also seeing abuse of boys and men being sexually abused. There are also some places, like for example in prisons, there are some places in which sexual abuse becomes part of the culture. Unfortunately, even in some religious organizations, there are ways in which the power relations within that organization can manifest themselves in rape and sexual abuse. There's also what we call cultural abuse, people who are damaged by persistent poverty, underdevelopment, poor diet, lack of the capacity, lack of agency to make their way in the world.
So how can the arts be a form of healing and coping? And why does art work so well with trauma? Research has found that traumatic memories are stored in the right hemisphere of the brain, and speech is located on the left. Because art is a right-brained activity, it is often easier for those suffering from PTSD to express their trauma creatively than just speaking about it alone.
Can art be a coping mechanism? And I say yes, because the difficulty with trauma is the unrepresentability of the root of the pain. You cannot represent it, you cannot articulate it, you cannot face the horror of it in a full frontal manner. And therefore art that can help you with representation or narrative that can help you with articulation are both very important.
Creative methods such as drawing, painting, sculpting, dancing, and even acting create a safe space where people can express painful feelings and emotions. Women can use the arts to process and examine traumatic events without feeling extremely overwhelmed. And these artistic methods can be quite grounding for anxious thoughts and the anxious mind in general.
Now, the thing is, how can people represent and narrate without becoming re-traumatized in the process? Because sometimes just to go into that act of representation is to see yourself back in the past. I've had situations of teaching the course Gender Violence and Trauma, where we may read a narrative account and students run out of the class, or they start shaking uncontrollably, or they begin to weep, and that is because the reading has thrown them back. So it all has to be really sensitively done, but I do 100% believe that it is possible for people through representation to represent what thus far has been unrepresentable, and through articulation or through narration, through telling, to speak what has been unspeakable.
Through exploring their art, women can look for themes and conflicts that may be affecting their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The research has shown that the arts work best in tandem with talk therapy, or what we know as cognitive behavioral therapy, for the best results when dealing with any form of PTSD.
One of the first things persons must do to cope with trauma, it is necessary, I believe, for one to admit that they have been traumatized. One of the things that I've found is that many people who have been traumatized exist in complete isolation, and they feel that their condition is theirs and theirs alone. They have a sense of some kind of exceptionalism, that I am in this exceptional condition. And interventions in that case can take the form of bringing people into groups and sharing stories, because when they share stories, they see the commonalities that run from person to person. Some situations that people bear as if it is their own exceptional guilt, it is their own exceptional shame, it is their own exceptional weakness that has brought them to this situation. When they come into groups, they hear their stories over and over and over and over again. So one of the strategies for traumatized people who may just react on an impulse, high level of impulsivity, a high level of indecisiveness, is to teach them to stop and think and use their senses to orient themselves. Where am I? Am I really in an unsafe place? Do I need to run? They may be stuck in a freeze or fight or flight response. And part of the problem is that those trauma responses are in a segment of their brain that reacts just not so much spontaneously, but reacts automatically. And what they need to do is to find a way to go to this segment of their brain that will react in a rational manner based on thought and logic.
How can women use visual arts to heal from trauma? First of all, when we speak about visual arts, it extends to so many different methods. Visual arts could be painting, drawing, it could be video, photography, which is more of what I do. There's just such a wide range of work that falls under visual arts. And I do want to point out there's a difference between visual arts and art therapies. Back when I didn't know any better, I actually used to say that I was doing art therapy. And art therapy is actually a licensed, it's a medical term actually. It's when we say an art therapist, for example, we're speaking about a psychologist, an actual professional with qualifications who is actually treating a patient, who's able to diagnose, who's able to work with them for mental health situations or issues, if you want to, call it that. And there is a difference between a practitioner of that and somebody who's using art methods or art processes to heal from trauma in some way. But it is a distinction that I want to make clear, because since I sort of stumbled upon that accidentally, I've started working with art therapists. And, I work with them as an artist in my field, and they have their own sort of mandates and qualifications in their field, and we work together. So in no way am I a practitioner, and in many cases they are not visual artists. So when we talk about how visual arts can help women heal from trauma, it really depends on what they're using the process for. So for example, as a child, I went through quite a bit of childhood trauma, and how I got through it was through experimenting and through creative play. And it wasn't necessarily instructive visual arts. It wasn't like, okay, Jamie, paint this or draw this or do these particular things. It was just me channeling that negative energy and channeling emotions, suppressed feelings, anger, hurt, all, this myriad of experience through creative play. And that's actually what made me the type of artist I am now, in that I'm a conceptual contemporary artist. Medium is not something I'm confined to. A lot of times it's more the idea that I'm attached to. And when I have an idea or an experience I want my audience to, let's say, feel or ponder on, I actually choose the medium or material that's most beneficial to that idea.
My name is Alana Rajah, and I'm a Bharatanatyam artist and teacher. Bharatanatyam is one of the 8 forms of Indian classical dance that originated in the southern state of Tamil Nadu, India. If we look back at the art form's history, its very first practitioners were women who dedicated themselves to the presiding deity of the temples of southern India. This speaks volumes for their importance, strength, and just how powerful they were in contributing to a society. It also reflects just how much women can face, how much they can be misunderstood, but how valorous they emerge after it all. How relevant is this art form in today's society, especially for women, even women who face similar circumstances? The art form is taught in a very systematic way. It is highly disciplinary. It connects mind, body, and soul. For women who would have had traumatic experiences, this can be highly therapeutic. Students are made to understand or made aware of 2 very important components of the art form, that which is physical and that which is emotional. Understanding their bodies brings them to that physical component. They become one with themselves, they appreciate their body, they love their bodies, they understand its strengths, its weaknesses, and they work with it. This is harmonizing. Then they are made aware of the emotional concept of dance, that is, acknowledging emotions that exist, bringing them to the surface, and releasing them. This can be very spiritual. This connects you to something that is larger than yourselves. And for women, this is very empowering. Understanding that on a stage you are in charge, you are able to have a transformational experience, a spiritual experience, a liberating experience, all in front of an entire audience. Life is like this.
One of the ways to find yourself is on the page, writing yourself into being. Taking a pen and a clean page, close your eyes and write as though you are reading Braille, reading yourself. Become your own character. Rearrange your character's life. Give her the answers to those all-consuming questions that keep her up at night. Allow her to dream of different outcomes to familiar problems. Give her permission to say the things that are hidden deep in the recesses of the mind, but still, without warning, burst out and shape her thoughts and feelings. Using writing to work through trauma has been proven time and again to act as a release for pressure that builds up in the mind. Using the pen to slash through those feelings, to draw blood, to dig out the root of the pain, before using more words to add soothing ointment to the soul. We are often taught from young to hide emotions. Nobody needs to see that messy side of us. If you're male, you have to be strong, man up. If you're female, you have to behave yourself, think about others, control your hormones. Take up a pen. Write all of those don'ts, those behaves, those controls. Write them and rearrange them into something that works for you. Writing out trauma can be private or it can be shared. It can help you to pinpoint what hurts and what brings pleasure. When you're ready to write your stories, it's a tool for you to find yourself in your characters and in the lives they live and the emotions they feel. It's a way to breathe in the smell of the earth after a surprise rainfall, to feel the sun scraping across your skin as waves crash to the shore, to taste the story of a lover and hear the beating rhythm that is life.
My name is Katherine Carrera, mainly known as KTC. I'm a dancer, creative director, artistic director, choreographer, instructor, pioneer, and huge woman advocate right here in Trinidad and Tobago. I am the founder of a school called Healing Queens. Now, what does Healing Queens do? Healing Queens was founded by women for women. It's basically a platform to give women a safe space to explore, strengthen their own voice through the medium of dancing in heels. I firmly believe that dancing is very therapeutic. It has helped me in a time of serious need. It has helped majority of my clients as well. Our classes bring a sense of unity and togetherness, kindness, and above all, embracing the woman that you are inside wholeheartedly. My hopes for each person that steps into my class is that they fall in love with themselves all over again. We are trying to create an army of confident, successful women who are working themselves up to be the best version of themselves, and women who are already at the best version of themselves and just exploring a fun, unique way to enjoy. Healing Queens is not just for the experienced dancer. It is definitely mainly for the everyday woman. I want everyone to step into my class and fall in love with themselves all over again. And with that love, ripple effect into their entire life. I want them going into their world and feeling like a queen in their world. My classes encourage support of one another, kindness for one another, strengthening of one another, and just basically having fun and being a woman.
Hi everyone, my name is Arielle John and I'm here to share a poem today. The name of this poem is called Safety First. I don't know what it was to walk around as a child with pillows tied across my chest and strapped across my back, with arms flailing in the middle like toddler swimming floats. Have never worn a helmet with my bike or with my silver rollerblades with my heart, never afraid of getting my hair wet in the rain. Never a safety belt strapped until my parents' car accident last June. No lid for my mouth, however inappropriate a teenager I grew. Have never walked into love with a shield, with an evacuation map, with a mattress waiting below to catch me wingless when I jump out the building. I have jumped every cliff that promised water at the bottom and without a wetsuit. Ran around the red ants ridden backyard barefooted since I could walk. I do not ever have a plan B until it is needed. And then I make one with best guess precision. I lose all my umbrellas within 3 months. I do not have a savings account. I do not know what it is to walk through the world ducking every blow, wary of anything that looks like it is bigger than me, carries more teeth in its mouth or bass in its voice. I also know what it is to wake up one morning and notice the bruises, the scarring, the tunneled pockets. I know the impiety of tropical rain-turned boat-worthy flood. I know how death comes in slow motion so that we do not forget the details of her face. I know how it feels to be blatantly refused love and live to laugh about it. I wake up anyway and walk and carry wild orchids bundled in my arms, trying to not get them bloodied.
Stripped. She just needed 2 words to complete. That was all. But they had to be the right ones. Kaya had been trawling vide greniers all summer, driving to tiny villages in her old car. She sometimes didn't think she'd make it to the next one. And then the panic would set in. What if? What if she didn't get there and one of the words was waiting for her? Someone could have found it in an attic or the basement, or even just sitting on the sideboard in the living room, something they'd inherited and never paid much attention to, never considered its potential value to someone else. On these panic days, Kaya would pray to ocean, Oya, the universe, light, earth, fire, angels. Oh, but these 2 words were elusive. It would help if she knew what they were, what it was she was looking for exactly, but she didn't. She would know when she saw them. And no matter what condition they were in, she could and would restore them. There was a sentence waiting for them. She hadn't always been like this, but as she got older and her children moved away to good universities, and her husband moved away to Tracy Stringer, that vulgar no-good piece on the next street, words became important. Not for the monetary value. Oh no, Kaya was never interested in that. No, it was for the beauty they could produce, for the completeness. They fed her soul. When Frank slunk back and tapped on the back door, Kaya would sit at the kitchen table, her back to him, arranging her words, fitting them together in different ways, massaging them, reshaping the most unwieldy, smoothing edges. A single word held so much meaning once a wordsmith had finished with it.
I did a piece on domestic violence years ago, and I don't want to use catchphrases like domestic violence, child abuse, things like that after a while people can use as just terms. You know, I was actually living in a particular situation as a child in an abusive home. And then when I left home, I got myself into another abusive situation, and I'm since long gone from that. But you know, it was playing as a child that allowed me to work the way I am as an artist now, where I experiment with materials and ideas. So in that piece on domestic violence, it was actually real flowers that I got from a past abuser delivered to me in Vermont when I went away to go on an arts residency, and it showed up there and everyone was like, oh my god, I love these flowers, you're so lucky. But to me it was like receiving a bouquet of roaches, because I'm terrified of roaches, right? It's almost as if these flowers had stalked me there. And what I did was I actually didn't deliberate too hard on it. I ripped it up into pieces and I pinned it down onto the wall. I was able to release that fear and that energy through ripping up these flowers and symbolically taking control. Because in a sense, I felt like these flowers were a reminder and they were a trigger and they were seeking to control me, antagonize me from a distance. So I turned the tables on that and I ripped them up into shreds and I actually pinned them to the wall in the shape of a large roach. And then I watched it decay over the period of a month and I filmed it. To date, it stands as one of my most recognizable and powerful works, created in that moment without much thought.
I was 13 when I drowned. 13. Mama made me do it. I was 2 months pregnant for a man 3 times my age and my daddy's good friend. I begged Mama not to tell him, not to tell Daddy, and she knew it was the right thing to do. How could we tell him that his old schoolmate, the man he loved as a brother, did this to me? What about how he would look at me, his one and only little girl? I couldn't bear the thought of seeing the hate and disappointment on his face for the rest of my life. Daddy was a dangerous man to cross, so we didn't risk it. Mama bounded my stomach with cloth till the very last day of the 8 weeks. She said it's too hard out here for a blackened chicken like me, and only at 13, the world too advantageous. That the baby doesn't deserve a life without a father and an unprepared mother. So when Mama brought that piping hot cup of tea, I drank it. The leaves were strong, and it smelled like zebra peak medicine mixed with Corelli water and cod liver oil. I wanted to vomit, but I drank every bit of the thick substance that spread over my tongue like wet dirt. Chandelier bush, she called it, but I knew it had more than bush in that tea. Hurry up and drink the thing, we ain't have whole day. Mama's eyes were cold. I peeped over the large cup, the warm steel burning the tip of my lips. The real thing to flush out your system. The rightest brew that could make a womb vomit a baby, she said. Later that day, I laid in bed turning and twisting, trying to eat the pain. Hot salty tears hit my cold pillow, legs quivering, eyes filmy, an intense heat building up between my thighs. The discomfort was worse than period cramps. My body was no longer mine. Mama entered my room with an old sheet, a large calabash in hand, and an old wet rag hanging from her shoulder. She applied the poultice to my forehead, then the damp cloth to hold it in place. I couldn't stand the burning methylated scent, the herbs and the stickiness of the flower. Mama, the smell, the pain, I can't take the pain, I said in between sobs. Hush, child, hush. She didn't dare look me in the eyes. So you make your bed? It's so you had a lie in it. She covered me from my waist down with a tattered sheet and left the room. Scared and alone, I lay there rolling in liquid, stifling my groans. My head felt like it could have split into two. My stomach was heavy. The room smelled like a hearse, perfumed with death. I looked at the bare cream walls, seeking solace, but even the walls were sweating beads. A sudden pain arched my body upwards, and I cried out for Mama, but she didn't come. It clawed at my insides. I crawled out of bed, back curved in pain, and dragged myself to the bathroom. I squatted over the toilet like Mama told me to. I couldn't fight it no more. I pushed and pushed. It wanted out. I called on God over and over to save me. Save me, please. After the deafening sound of it hitting the water, the silence haunted me. With wobbling legs, I slid my aching body to the cold concrete floor, painting the tiled walls red. Vision blurry with unshed tears, I crawled out of the toilet space towards the small basin we called a bathtub. I managed to pull my body upwards. I turned the faucet and the echoes of the water hitting my feet bounced off the walls. The clear stream of water was now brown and smelled metallic. I slid my body under, welcoming the water to cover me completely. My body was heavy like the bulky crocus bags Mama toted sometimes. I imagined not coming back to the surface.
Hi there again, everyone. So we've come to the ending of our program. Thank you so much to our beautiful presenters. Thank you for your time, for your effort, and for your talent. Thank you for your enthusiasm in jumping on board with this project. Much thanks as well must be given to Kingston Creative, Fresh Milk Barbados, and the American Friends of Jamaica who have made this moment possible through the Catapult Caribbean Creative Online Program. For the many of you watching out there, I hope that this has been a truly enriching experience. Before we wrap up, there is just one more thing left. It is a short film depicting a story that I wrote. It's titled Between the Lips of the Waterfall. Here it is, from my heart to yours. Between the lips of the waterfall, Mandisa bends, unwraps the buckles, unstraps the glitter bands that crisscross and bind her feet on these plastic platforms which separate her from the ground. She lifts off, lands, lets her feet rest on dust grains that since yesteryear have gathered for this return, softening as she listens to their bidding, welcome. She stands before the door, feeling the tremor, goes forward to the lock with fingertips trembling, searching, naked, vulnerable. Laughter tingles, then the pair of phantasms appear, figures that walked this place a long time before she arrived here now. They come in through the gate, the one at her back. She spies them before they are at her side. It is a young woman and a young man. They walk, hand in arm, with mouths greeting and tongues leading each step forward. They smile at each other. Keys tinkle. The young she-spectre opens the lock, letting herself be kissed on the back and allowing the man into the room. This the tiny dance studio. They go in, closing the door, leaving Mandisa behind, looking on as the she-spectre walks towards the chair and puts him to sit. She dips and dives and curves and bends, cascading in a torrent, slinking energy, moving in patterns like the sound of an incantation, chanting and summoning the sound of clattering on a waistline chattering in the chill of the night. Her hands float up slow, rising like a flag of mercy, and fingers curl like fabric ends cut up and flapping through hair that inundates to the rhythm of the body rippling below. When she turns to peek out at him through arms that bend over her eyes, her body rolls as her hair falls, sweeping her feet that lifts off its heels, landing her again, taking her closer to him as her chest continues to circle in the surge of the music streaming out the speaker set. She gets to him, places her hands on his shoulders, slide, shoulders swirl, shoulders shimmy, side to side into him. He holds her, commanding her to a spin, bringing her down on top of him. Their bodies undulate together. Hands tread the salt of her skin together. Hands spread on the surface of thighs, sweating, until she asks him to stop now. Pause, so she could catch her breath. Pause, because actually this isn't working for her. She isn't in the frame of mind. Pause, actually stop altogether, because she doesn't want it to happen. She isn't ready yet, remember? She's told him this already, even before they came in, especially before they came in here tonight, but for his aggravated quarreling and the constant pressuring which made her give in to his decision. So when he says to her, when will you ever be ready? He doesn't bother to listen any further. His mouth glowers in the heat of the frustration. Impatience is a glassy film over the iris. His hands slowly separate from her, letting her go, but when she gets up, they change their mind and instead grab her, pull her tighter, push her back, bend her forward, lift up her shirt, uncover her crest, sinks into her troughs, dripping, her water begins falling, freezing, scared, solid, stiff, when she feels him unwanted and uninvited, slow and shifting, sliding, squeezing, shoving, thrusting, into her, slitting open her screams, no, 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 stop please, that no, 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 stop please, that no one hears, not him, not her, just the stone walls, trembling stillness. Mandisa does not recognize the she-spectre when the two emerge. Something is strange, something different, something changed. As though the spirit skin she is wearing has shuddered out of its place somehow, as though it is shrunken and shifted. She grabs at her, wanting to hold it, to fix it, fasten it back into place, but out she slips, passing by, walking with him, leaving Mandisa behind, still trembling, but facing forward, with fingertips reaching to unlock the door, that she must unlock the door, that she must unlock the door, that she must unlock. Why? Why has she come to this place again? She asks herself. Why? As she turns the lock and enters again, this place that is outside of her, that is inside of her like a vein, this place that she has tried to leave, but keeps coming back to her like an echo, this place that belongs to her. Why has she come to this place, she asks, feeling the openness, the emptiness, where now only insects live, and there is the chair, exactly where she left it when it happened. Why has she come to this place she smells with her tongue and tastes with her ears? Why has she come to this place she hears with her eyes and sees with her fingers? Why has she come to this place, she asks, as the she-spectre appears in the glass mirror? The girl, the ghost, who is inside of her, like a vein, who she has tried to leave, but who keeps coming back to her, like an echo. The she-spectre who will never leave her, the she-spectre who is her. Mandisa looks to her and tells her that after 8 long years in the making, these words which have been whispering inside like a drizzling, these words which have been gathering inside like a swelling, these words which have been gushing like water in a river traveling to the surface of the mountain, these words are now ready to spill into the shapes. Rape is not sex. It was his fault, not hers. Not the way she moved that night, or the dream she had, or the way she dressed, or the way she walked and talked around him. It was him, all his fault for betraying her trust, for going past the limits she set, for taking advantage of her in those moments, for pressuring her after to continue, for berating her when she refused, for hurting her long after he had left. And she has come to ask forgiveness, beg forgiveness, plead forgiveness, in loving forgiveness from it all, because none of this was ever hers to own. None of this blame, this shame, this guilt, this silencing, this suffering that she has been bearing, none of it her own. It is all his. All this belongs to him. All him, all of it, all his own. Give it to him now. Give it back to him. Stand strong in the knowing what has always been known, but was never ready to be known until now. It was not her fault. Mandisa stands before her girl ghost spectre and sets the burden down before her in a release. She stands quiet, breathing in peace, and slowly allows the smile to unfreeze when she bends, falls forward, then rises up, slow, hands drifting up through the air, hands coming together to heart center, hands opening out, parallel to side, parallel to feet, opening before herself as mountain, saluting her sun, which had once been forsaken for darkness. Breathes in again and welcomes herself rising from the ashes that cover this place. Inhales, lifting her torso, exhales, rising like the tree planted under her sun, sparkling, shining, shimmering in all her glory when she begins to dip and dive and curve and bend, cascading into a torrent. Floats up, slow, fingers curling in and out like a wave through hair that inundates to the rhythm of the body rippling below. Turns and spins to peek out through arms that bend over eyes as hands fall over and spread the sweat on the surface of neck to breasts and thighs while hips roll and hair sweeps, feet lifting off its heels, landing again in the rhythm of chest circling in the surge of the stream of her body swirling up and down, in and out, with calves flexing, firming, smoothing up and down, in and out of the stream, ebbing, shoulders swirling, shoulders shimmying, shoulders side to side, into her girl ghost spectre that moves before her in the mirror. She turns before her, twists into her, body into her, winding, grinding together, with hands treading the salt of skin together, and hands spreading on the surface of thighs, sweat pushing back into her, bending forward on her, sinking into her, lifting up from her, spreading onto her sweat dripping, water falling, unfreezing, when she lowers herself to the ground in front of her, raising up her legs, rests it on her, lifts the curve of her back against hers, opens out and feels her for the first time again in years. This girl who is outside of her, who is inside of her like a vein, who she has tried to leave, but who keeps coming back like an echo, who will never leave her, the girl who is her. She sees her with her fingers, hikes the mountain of her legs, travels down low into her valleys, between her peaks, over her crests, into her troughs dripping, warm, liquid water, swelling, spilling, streaming out from everywhere inside of her, smelling sugar, creaming and caramelizing on her tongue, moist and wet and salting sweet. Hears her screaming, shrieking, screeching, as fingertips touch and tremor and tremble in the water falling between her lips.
All they can say is give up on dreaming. up, start working. Quiet, stop fighting. Chrome's a good color on you, but I won't. I'll stay afloat. I'll believe in myself. I'll escape from this hell, and I'll live to tell the tale of flesh and bone.